been reading Wendell Berry's book of essays, A Continuous Harmony, for the last few days, just bits and pieces here and there. And I ran across this one that it's called Discipline and Hope. And it's about linear versus cyclical. And for me, this is kind of be like a basic Bible entry for why I farm and why I need contact with nature every day. I'm going to read this, maybe stop and talk a little bit about it, but it's hard to improve upon Berry's language. The linear vision flourishes in ignorance or contempt of the processes on which it depends. In the face of these processes, our concepts and mechanisms are so unrealistic, so impractical, as to have the nature of fantasy. The processes are invariably cyclic, rising and falling, taking and giving back, living and dying. But the linear vision places its emphasis entirely on the rising phase of the cycle, on production, possession, life. It provides for no returns. Waste, for instance, is a concept that could have been derived only from the linear vision. According to the scheme of our present thinking, every human activity produces waste. This implies a profound contempt for correct discipline. It proposes, in the giddy faith of prodigals, that there can be production without fertility, abundance without thrift. We take and do not give back, and this causes waste. It is a hideous concept, and it is making the world hideous. It is consumption, a wasting disease. And this disease of our material economy becomes also the disease of our spiritual economy. And we've made a shoddy merchandise of our souls. We want the truth to be easy and spectacular. And so we waste our verities. We are always hastening from the essential to the novel. We will have no prophet who is not an acrobat. We want to have love without a return of devotion or loyalty. To us, Aphrodite is a peeping statistician, the seismographer of orgasms. We want a faith that demands no return of good work. And art, we want it to be instantaneous and effortless. We want it to involve no apprenticeship to a tradition or a discipline or a master. No devotion to an ideal of workmanship. We want our art to support the illusion that high achievement is within easy reach. For we want to believe that, though we are demeaned by our work and driven half crazy by our pleasures, we are all mute, inglorious Miltons. To take up again my theme of agriculture, it is obvious that the modern practice concentrates almost exclusively on the productive phase of the natural cycle. The means of production become more elaborate all the time, but the means of return, the building of health and fertility in the soil, are reduced more and more to the shorthand of chemicals. According to the industrial vision of it, the life of a farm does not rise and fall in the turning cycle of the year. It goes on in a straight line from one harvest to another. This, in the long run, may well be more productive of waste than anything else. It wastes the soil, it wastes the animal manures, and other organic residues that industrialized agriculture frequently fails to return to the soil. And what may be our largest agricultural waste is not usually recognized as such, but is thought to be both an urban product and an urban problem. The tons of garbage and sewage that are burned or buried or flushed into the rivers. This, like all waste, is the abuse of a resource. It was ecological stupidity of exactly this kind that destroyed Rome. The chemist, Justus von Liebig, wrote that the sewers of the immense metropolis engulfed in the courses of centuries the prosperity of Roman peasants. The Roman Campagna would no longer yield the means of feeding her population. These same sewers devoured the wealth of Sicily, Sardinia, and the fertile lands of the coast of Africa. Barrie's ability to move back and forth, seemingly at ease, but I know it was hard work, between the philosophical and the theoretical to the practical and the historical, the case study, is spectacular and is something to be emulated, not forgotten. But, a lot of this has to do with what I read the other day in his essay in defense of literacy, where he says, in this marvelous summation of what he believes. For such people, a strip mine ceases to exist as soon as the coal has been extracted. Short-term practicality is long-term idiocy. So powerful. And that brings me to the chart that appears just before the text that I just read you. And this sums up a lot of what I believe as a farmer, somebody who believes in the culture of agriculture. And my belief is cyclic. Atonement is what I believe in. Doing the least amount of damage possible, because just by our existence on the planet, humans damage things. Every animal damages things in a way. We just have to minimize it so that the scars we create are easily healed. And a symbol of this is Black Elk's sacred hoop, in that we live in a community of creation. And that community includes the animals, the plants, the fungi, bacteria, everything. That's why this little piece of ground that we have is a universe, because it is the community of creation. Cyclic stuff is it's all about reconciliation. And it's what Blake called reconciliation, and I think he takes this directly from Blake. The reconciliation of heaven and earth toward responsible life. So my wife and I and family have lived on this piece of ground for over 30 years. And each day I feel like it's a holding action against the notion that the world is created for us to have dominion over it. The earth is a commodity. There's no such thing as stewardship. There is no aspiration, no reconciliation. There's a marvelous expression here under the cyclic nature of agriculture, and that is usufruct. It's a Roman law concept. It means that we only have the use of the fruit of the land and not the land itself. So we can grow stuff on it as long as we don't extract from it. It's all about renewing what has been given to us for the future. And that's not just generations, that's the future of everything that exists on this little piece of ground. This is more than I can manage, but I want it. I want to try to renew it. I want what I experience here in my community of creation to recur. And it's not just about the living. It's about life and death as part of the same cyclical nature. Very profound chart. I'm really glad to have run across it. It's spectacular what happens when you go back and look at stuff that you have not read in a long time, but have internalized. And much of what Barry has written, I've internalized. And not just as he said it, but as a part of my lived experience. I know everybody has books like this, but we rarely go back and pull them off the shelf and reconsider them. Maybe you should do the same. Find a book that you are that you would like to rethink, like I'm trying to rethink this collection of essays by Barry. Thanks for joining me.